The governor of Missouri signed a bill that bans local governments from implementing their own eviction moratoriums. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's coming out of the great state of Missouri. Obviously, I used to be an investor there. I sold all my properties just this year that were in Missouri, but I'm glad that there are very pro-landlord politicians in place there that are making sure that we don't go through that eviction moratorium nonsense that we went through back during the pandemic, okay? So they just passed the law saying that local governments within the state of Missouri, specifically Kansas City and St. Louis, will no longer be able to pass their own local eviction moratoriums. It's a good thing. It's a good thing because there are people with more knowledge, more, just thinking in the state legislature than there are within the local governments. Local governments in Missouri are kind of like, in my opinion, they follow more closely what the people on the coast are doing, okay? They're very, very left-leaning. They're very anti-landlord. And honestly, if the state didn't keep them in check, they would have all of the same laws that places like Los Angeles or Boston have, okay? It's completely ridiculous. So, yeah, the state lawmakers are keeping them in check and continuing to allow landlords in Missouri to actually operate their businesses in the best way possible. So yeah, this is a good thing. And I'm going to go over the details in just a second. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So this question really has to do not with the eviction moratorium ban, which I think is a good thing, but it has to do with what the state did, okay? Do you think it's a good idea that a state will essentially counteract local laws and rules? Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing? I can see arguments on both sides. Keep in mind that this could go the other way as well. Okay, so imagine a state such as California where the overwhelming majority of the state is, left-leaning, anti-landlord. And then you have maybe a place that's a little bit more conservative outside of the major cities, and they're like, hey, we want to pass these pro-landlord laws, and then the state steps in and says, no, you can't do that. You must follow our rent control. You must do this. You must do that. And, I can see how that would be a negative thing, right? Taking away that local control. So my question for the people on here is, do you believe that the local control is better, or do you think that the state should be the one making these sorts of decisions? Remember, this can work either for us or against us, depending on which state that we're talking about. So, really, it's something that needs to be talked about and discussed. I'm a strong believer in, the local control, but, I don't like eviction moratoriums. And so in this case, I agree with the state taking that control away from the locality. So this is a hard one. This is a hard one. Put your opinions in the comments down below. Anyway, let's get into this article. This article is coming from ky3.com, and it says, Missouri Governor Parson signs a bill banning local eviction moratoriums. Let's get into the details. Under multiple bills signed by Missouri Governor Mike Parson Tuesday, local governments will no longer be allowed to impose temporary bans on evictions, even during a public health emergency. This puts the power in the hands of the General Assembly and the governor right here if he wants to impose a moratorium on evictions, said the bill's House sponsor, State Representative Chris Brown, a Republican from Kansas City. He pointed to the 2020 eviction moratorium imposed by the federal government during the COVID-19 pandemic. Within that year and a half time period, until the Supreme Court stepped in and stopped that, literally billions of dollars were lost to property owners, landlords, big and small, said State Representative Brown. He's absolutely correct. Billions of dollars that is not recoverable. And we weren't the only ones who suffered. A lot of small businesses were completely destroyed. They're gone forever. Okay, businesses that we all used to shop at, a lot of the rules, a lot of the things have changed since then due to the pandemic and have not returned to the way they were pre-pandemic. So yeah, you know what? They came in there, they said, hey, you have to abide by these rules. And rather than leaving us some sort of leeway so that maybe we could survive, they just cut our legs out from underneath us and told us, it's too bad for you. Well, you know what? Let's make sure that doesn't happen again. That's the true lesson that I learned from this eviction moratorium nonsense, from all of this pandemic nonsense. Do not let that happen again. Okay? It was more destructive. The reaction of the government and all the rules they placed on us was more destructive than the illness itself. Okay? I'm one of those people who says, hey, you know what? Maybe we shouldn't tell everybody to stay home and, not interact with other people, because that causes mass psychosis. That, like the crime problems we're dealing with now, the rioting and all that happened back in the summer of 2020, all of the people who just are still suffering from depression and mental illness, the people who gained a ton of weight or didn't go and see their doctors because they couldn't, the result from the pandemic and all of it, it was caused by the government telling us that we had to stay home, that we couldn't do this, that you're not essential, that you can't go see your doctor, that you can't go to your gym, you can't do anything. You just sit in your home and twiddle your thumbs. That's what they told us, right? Now, me personally, I work in an essential job. I'm a law enforcement officer. So I had the privilege, I guess you could say, of going to work and never, being able to telework at any point in time during the entire pandemic. So I got out there and I interacted with people every day, and that's helped make sure that I was mentally healthy through it. I was frustrated. I was angry. I was pissed off. You can watch my old videos. I was pissed off, okay? But I made it through it, and I am still mentally there. In terms of working out, when they closed my gym down and put all those restrictions on us, I started running outside. And now, because I run so much, I'm in better health than I was before the pandemic. The few people can say that. Few people, okay? But, it didn't work out for everybody like it did for me. And so I don't want to see the laws and rules and regulations that they implemented during that pandemic ever happen again. And, when we're talking about local control versus state control, or we're talking about state control versus national control, right? Those are important issues. But the most important thing is, right, the lesson that I learned was never, ever, ever implement this garbage again, okay? It's enough right there to go up there and, fight hard against it, okay? It's worth fighting for. So anyway, let me continue. A report from J.P. Morgan polled more than 32,000 rental owners who reported losing rental revenues in early 2020, but much of that was made back through rent relief programs, back payments, and cutting expenses. Cutting expenses isn't making your rent back. That's stupid. That's cutting expenses. Man, who wrote this idiotic report? And in terms of rent relief program, not everybody was eligible for rent relief. Not everybody got rent relief. They had very limited rules, but people couldn't be evicted whether your tenants qualified for rent relief or not, okay? Basically, a lot of landlords lost billions of dollars that is not recoverable, all due to the government. You told people they didn't have to pay rent, and even people who could pay the rent, they just chose not to pay it. It's pretty simple. Any idiot could have figured out that was going to happen. This would leave vulnerable residents without any protections, exacerbating the already dire situation that many Missourians are facing, said Michael Dreyer, who testified in opposition to the bill HB 2062. Furthermore, the bill would likely be in conflict with the legal authority of local governments to protect public health and welfare. First of all, right, the legal authority of the local governments is set by the state. And they just said, hey, you don't have the legal authority to do this. So that argument is it's not a useful argument. The other thing that this person said was that, it would leave vulnerable residents without any protections, which is not the case at all. Okay, they didn't say that there were no protections for these residents. They just said that there are no local eviction moratoriums, and hopefully no eviction moratoriums at all, because the best protection for a resident, if a person loses their job and is facing a true hardship, would be to help that person get another job. That way they'd be able to pay their rent. Or they could just push the rental assistance programs. Okay, why not just give the people rental assistance so they can pay their rent, but not tell the landlord that they can't be evicted? I mean, it's pretty simple. That way you have a guarantee that the person isn't just going to pocket that money, or isn't just going to stop paying rent just because they want to. The eviction moratorium in itself created a lot of the problems. Okay, it created the problems of the eviction crisis or whatever, or tsunami of evictions, or whatever arguments they said they were trying to prevent. It created that. Anyway, I'm going to put a link to this article in the description down below. Let me know what you think of everything that I just covered.